excited to now go right into true Hidden Champions. So now that you know what the Hidden Champions Initiative is all about, we would like to talk a little bit more about concrete examples of hidden champions that we think are exciting. And for this, I would like to welcome 3 speakers that are hopefully going to come on right now. We have Franziska Hollmann, who is the chair of this panel. Hi, Franziska. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Wonderful. I can hear you loud and clear. Then we also have Dr. Mahgoub. Dr. Mahgoub, can you hear me as well?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. And then we also have Temwe from First Wave. Temwe, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. So this panel is about learning more about 2 hidden champion companies that we think are very exciting from 2 very different corners of the continent. And Franziska, I think I'm going to hand over to you now to introduce the panel and run the session. Thank you all 3 speakers for being part of this. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to learning from you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Yasmin. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead,
Just to check?
Franziska.
Okay, wonderful. Good afternoon to all who participate in this web conference today. And a special thanks to Yasmin Kumi and Rashida Zeshi for organizing this really inspiring event in a very special situation. I think we all waited for such an event, and it comes exactly at the right moment. I participated in Africa at Scale last year, and I liked it so much that, and I found it so inspiring to learn about African leaders who share their experience in case studies. So that we immediately, Yasmin and myself, we started thinking about how can we cooperate, DEG and Africa Foresight. And well, then there was obviously, because of COVID-19, a little bit of silence. And all of a sudden, Yasmin came up with the idea, and I don't remember when it was born. Maybe we were talking about it a year ago already, but only as a catchword. She came up with the idea of Hidden Champion Initiative. And well, I thought, wow, this is exactly what we need and what comes at the right way. And well, here we are, only a few weeks or maybe some months later, we are ready to start, and I'm really happy that we can do it today. In these peculiar times, trade patterns are changing, and they did already prior to Corona. But while pre-COVID-19, the world seems to be shrinking, and we got used to just jump on a plane and do business around the globe, the pandemic now forces us to develop new ideas, to develop new procedures, and think about way of communication, and of course, to develop new markets. Africa leapfrogged in the telecommunication and has a very ambitious business, entrepreneurship, and growing young population. We heard a lot about it today. But nevertheless, as we heard before, African companies struggle to grow beyond their home markets or even beyond the continent. But Africa is a home to a rising number of hidden champions, potential hidden champions as well, who can produce leading goods and services today, still with little or no exposure out of their home markets. In this session now, it's an honor and a pleasure for me to introduce you to 2 successful entrepreneurs, hidden champions, from different African regions who will share their unique growth stories. They are both in agribusiness. And maybe you think, well, agribusiness is not the most sexy and most innovative industry. However, these 2 business leaders will share their experience, how they could grow and export and develop new ideas, not only in technology, but also in human capital, strategy, and finance, maybe. Please welcome with me today, Dr. Wagdi Mahgoub. He's chairman and managing director of Mahgoub Sons Group. Mahgoub Sons Group is a 3rd-generation family business who has which tremendously grown since the 1960s. It's a prime leader in agro and agro-industrial sector in Sudan and exports agri-commodities. The vision of the founder was that Sudan will be able to step out of the poverty cycle by developing a professional agriculture. And I'm sure that Dr. Mahjoub will tell us more about it. Dr. Mahjoub himself, he's also an advocate and a leader of international cooperation between Sudan and Ethiopia and South Africa, Saudi Arabia and Switzerland. So he's really looking beyond the borders of his home country. And in addition, he's the chairman of the leading broadcasting channel in Sudan. Welcome, Dr. Mahjoub, and it's really a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you. My second guest and speaker today is Mr. Tembwe Mutungu. He's co-founder and CEO of First Wave Group. First Wave Group is a little bit younger company and a very fast-growing company. It's Africa's largest and only vertically integrated freshwater aquaculture business with operations in Zambia and Uganda. And First Wave's mission is to address the protein food security through a provision of affordable fish that is sustainably produced. Mr. Tembwe Mutungu was not grown up with the idea to work in agribusiness, he told me earlier this week. He has over 10 years of experience in operations and finance in Africa and holds an MBA in finance and in industrial engineering. Thank you, Mr. Mutungu, to join us today. It's a pleasure to have you here. I wanted to mention one aspect. He also became a member of Harambeen's African Innovators. You might have seen the advertisement or the logo of Harambeen's on the webpage here. It's a very interesting group of entrepreneurs who aim to develop an entrepreneurial ecosystem to transform ideas into scalable solutions across Africa. So a perfect fit to the idea of making hidden champions visible. My first question to Dr. Mahjoub. We already said, well, your company is a hidden champion. Do you agree? And if so, what I expect, in which sense? Can you tell us a little bit more about your business? What makes your business unique?
Okay, what makes our business unique? That we've managed to address the economic issue of the Sudanese economy. Sudan is well known. It's a very vast country with a huge arable cultivating area. We have over 70 million hectares of good land. We have plenty of water, but unfortunately it's very low utilized and as well as low productivity. So our company invested in this, in boosting the productivity, and we managed to get the production into the right international level. Therefore, we managed really to address the Sudan economy problem. What makes our company unique, that we have invested into the agricultural sector. Agricultural sector is well known as highly risky area. We managed to make it a successful and profitable. What makes us unique, that we have attracted other farmers to come in and to make the same practice, that how we can increase the productivity. What makes us unique, that we are sharing our results with the other farmers. Also, we are sharing this with the government so it can be spread over all the country, and hence we improve the economy. We are covering over 180,000 farmers. We are covering over 900,000 families. So all this make our company unique.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mahjoub. And I find it extremely interesting, your emphasis on the farmers. I had an interesting experience to spend a couple of days on a subsistence farmer land in Zambia a couple of years ago, and at that time I thought, well, this farmer was very successful, and he was much more successful than other farmers around him. And I think even in farming and even with the small farmers, it's so important to create little champions in the community and to help them to grow and become a professional farmer and create good examples. So what I hear from you, it's you're not only a champion in your business, but you also help farmers to achieve a different level of professionalism, which is very, very important. Temwe Mutungu. So in what sense is your company a champion? And what would you like to tell us about your unique market positioning?
Sure. Well, I would first of all say that certainly most people don't know about First Wave, and there's a little bit of growing familiarity, I would say, with one of our subsidiaries, Yalelo, in Zambia, is a little bit more of a household name in the aquaculture industry, and that very much is a consumer brand and consumer-facing business, and a little bit more well known there. But what people don't realize is the fact that we are actually engaged in operations all the way from the farmer right up to the consumer. And indeed, we have the largest fish production facility in Siavonga in Zambia, with the second site in Uganda. That would be the second largest, by the end of next year, from a production perspective, already from a capacity perspective today. But we also have the largest and most modern fish feed factory, which allows us to produce fish feed, not just for Zambia, but for the entire region, with sales and reach into Uganda, into Kenya. And that really is critical for unlocking the industry, the aquaculture industry as a whole. And feeding into that is our raw materials procurement. This is where, I guess we also get engagement with the farmers. And the total soya consumption of our value chain in Zambia alone is about 10% of Zambia's total soya output. And I think often people, even in Zambia, don't realize that ultimately what we are doing as a business is converting soya, maize, and wheat bran, all of which is locally produced, converting that into feed, converting the feed into fish, and actually selling that locally to consumers in urban areas in Zambia, and now actually starting to grow our sales footprint into Malawi, into South Africa, into Kenya, into DRC, replicating that model in Uganda, and hoping to provide coverage and start addressing protein availability in East Africa. If I talk about Africa, what makes us unique as a business, fundamentally, it is really just about that affordable protein, and that manifests itself through our production efficiency. And so, when you're comparing how many or how much feed it takes us to produce a kilo of fish, we're at about 1.3 kilos of feed for every kilo of fish that we produce. That is actually, more efficient than the South African poultry industry, which is at about 1.6 kilos of feed for every kilo of fish. It's more efficient than pork production, swine production, as well as the beef industry. And from an African perspective, that also puts us at the forefront, from an efficiency or from a production efficiency perspective. And really, although we are still working to stabilize some of our lowest our lowest quarterly results have really put us at the forefront globally from a production efficiency perspective, and that would be really the key metric. And I think it is that particular aspect that makes us unique. And as we get that particular piece right as our core source of advantages of business and continue to work to drive down our production costs, really what we see is a platform for the provision of, again, the most affordable and most sustainable source of protein for the African continent in addressing that food security need.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Mr. Mutungu. In terms of food conversion rate, the fish production is definitely the most efficient after the vegetarian food, of course. And so it's an extremely interesting topic, in particular for the food security in Africa, for the protein supply, etc. But I used to work for many years in an agribusiness, and people tend to think, well, fish production is easy. There's these stupid fish, and you just have to feed them a little bit, and then they grow, and you can sell them on the market for a nice margin. But in fact, we have seen also as DEG, we have seen many more companies which failed, which wasted millions in trying to feed the fish, because the animal is not stupid. It's very demanding. Can you tell us a little bit about technology-wise? Did you have partners who supported you, or where did you get the know-how from? So what were your challenges, or did it work out from the very beginning?
Well, no, it certainly did not. Well, first of all, I am going to say, yes, no, it is true. Fish farming is a simple business. And I think the issue is that it's maybe 20 or 30 or 40 simple things in of themselves that all need to work together and all need to, only to be achieved and be synced. And you have to get each and every one of those 30 or 40 things right in order to make the whole thing work. And that, really was the story of the journey of the business. The co-founders in the business actually have backgrounds in private equity, management consulting, and engineering. Actually, nothing to do with aquaculture of fish, which is a little bit interesting from that perspective. But I think the point was that as we went along, each and every time we faced a challenge in building up the business, we went and addressed that part of the value chain. So quite frankly, the initial view was that we would just focus on fish production, and that wasn't enough. And so we needed to develop breeding. And then when we got that stable, we needed to develop feed production. And then when we got that stable, we needed to develop distribution and retail in cold chain, because that didn't exist. And when that got stable, we then needed to get into raw materials procurement in order to manage the commodity cycle swings and currency and the like. And so really, I think that the business has followed the path of the idea that's shared in the prosperity paradox, which is that of a market creating innovation or a market creating business. There is nothing unique about what we do, in the sense that there are very few aquaculturalists in the management team. They are supply chain people, they're marketing people, they are sales people. But the point is that we're bringing the best of that knowledge to this particular sector for this particular problem in order to make it work.
So knowledge and human resource, this is really a key success factor.
Yeah.
Dr. Majoub, tell us please a little bit more about your challenges to grow from a Sudanese company, a market leader, to other countries, and to become even an exporter on the world market.
Yes, in fact, what we had done in Sudan actually opened our appetite to do this in other neighboring countries. As you know, we have invested a lot in increasing the productivity vertically, and then also we have invested in having added value for all our produce. We are producing cotton, oil seeds, and grains, and so we have invested in all this direction to make the habitat. And the idea is that we maximize the export. With this, we have looked into our neighboring like Ethiopia, where we use that there is a big demand for cotton. This is where we have transferred our investment into cotton, making yarn and textile over there, taking the advantage of the low cost of ore and labor, and also the better chances of marketing from Ethiopia worldwide. So we will be supplying the cotton from Sudan to the Ethiopian market to feed our complex, as well as we are also ready to supply our factories. And it is well known that Ethiopia now is becoming a hub for the textile and garment. So there is a big demand over there. So we believe that we are making some sort of market integration that we flow as a raw material from where they are cheap and to be produced or consumed where there is a better market, as well as we are having supplies for the Ethiopian products where they are cheap into the Sudanese market as the vaccines, etc. I think this is very essential to make a common African market, and in this respect, I believe we have managed to get use of the bilateral relations where there is no taxation between the two countries. And here we will definitely make some sort of common African market.
Dr. Mahjoub, I'm receiving already some questions from the audience, and one question is, did you find it more challenging to grow within your home market or outside the continent or outside your home market?
Well, as I mentioned, I think Sudan has the best land, has a big land, available land. If today you would like to take 100,000 hectare flat land, this is available only in Sudan. I have been in most of these African countries, you will never find more than 2,000 hectares at maximum. And then there is a big issue with land registration and ownership. But in Sudan, this is very easy. As well as you have a variety, you can grow wheat in the north, towards the south, you can grow tropical crops. And as well as the water availability in Sudan is really quite sufficient. You have any kind of irrigation. You have rivers, you have plenty rainfall, you have underground water anywhere, which is an issue in part of the African countries. But when you talk about power cost, then I can see a country like Ethiopia have a big advantage. So that helps you if you are using irrigation, if you are using power in irrigation, then definitely a country like Ethiopia will be very attractive, because the cost of the power is quite significant in the operation. So this is can be considered as an advantage in a country like Ethiopia, and this advantage when the power cost here is very good.
Thank you very much. Temwe Mutungu, there is a question also from the audience, which fits very well to our agenda today. If if the risk of aquaculture is perceived to be quite high, then what was your experience in access to financing? So could access to financing, was it a challenge, or could it be improved, or what do you think? What was your experience so far?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's an important question, and certainly, you know, the business, I mean, it's a young business, and it has not been without challenge. You know, we went through some learning in order to get our production system right. And I think the important thing for us was having a handle on the data. So it wasn't that things were not going wrong. It was the fact that we were always able to, at some point in time, sometimes it was after the fact, but at some point in time, we were always able to explain what went wrong and why and how we were going to fix it. And I think that you know, really, you know, being data-driven or seeking to be data-driven, I think there's still a lot more that we can be doing as a business in that particular area. But that fact alone, you know, brought more comfort, I would say, even to debt financiers, quite frankly, which then enabled us to raise, you know, raise finance and continue to grow the business. So again, absolutely right. You know, the business is high risk, and part of the high risk, by the way, is also just a function of the fact that the industry as a whole is behind the curve from a knowledge perspective. So probably, you know, tilapia-based aquaculture is 20 years behind salmon, maybe another 30, 40 years behind poultry. And then also the knowledge is very specific to the environment that you're growing it in. You know, Lake Kariba is different from Lake Victoria, is different from Lake Volta, and the growing conditions are different. So again, the important thing there is not so much about the risk, but again, how we are seeking to understand those risks, being able to explain them, and then being able to work around them, control them. You can't really control the risk. Of course, you're growing the fish in an open environment, and so you know, really just about managing that. And you know, we feel as though we've been able to, well, not just feel as though we have been able to do that. And as a result, I would not say that finance in particular has been a barrier or has been a challenge to growth. In actual fact, we've got more challenges keeping up with demand than with getting financing.
That's a very comfortable position. And you mentioned a very important aspect, which we many times see from development bank point of view, is that keeping the books in order and having the data available and making your business not only operational wise successful, but also making it bankable. This has a lot to do with discipline in the bookkeeping, in management, and information systems, etc. And although it doesn't seem to be highest priority at the beginning, but it's an important factor, obviously, as you're telling us today. And Dr. Mahjoub also mentioned, and you confirmed, a very important factor, which is the environment and the investment conditions, like human resources, like available and suitable land, obviously in agriculture, but energy costs, etc. So, which are also a factor which have to be well analyzed and chosen in the right way. There's another question for Dr. Mahjoub, and which refers to the Hidden Champion initiative a little bit, because it asks you whether the limited visibility of, well, maybe your business in Sudan has impacted the growth of the company. Would you agree, first of all, to this statement or to this thesis that your company has limited visibility? And if so, yeah, does it have any impact on the growth?
If I understand what the difficulties we are facing in doing this system.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear you well.
You are asking what difficulties we are facing in Sudan.
So the question is, which role does visibility of your business play for your growth? And it can be visibility within Sudan, but also without Sudan. So was it important for you to be well known and visible in order to expand your business outside Sudan? And if so, to what extent?
Definitely, this will help very much when you are visible and it will help you in investment opportunities with officials, with local partners, and also as well as the financial institution. All this will make the financial in order to speak on the preliminary wherever you need, as well as it will give you as a attraction for you with the good business becoming new rather than to try to search it.
It's not so easy to understand what you're saying, but I think we got an idea, and it's very obviously it's an important aspect, but we understood that also being professional is maybe much more important. There's a last question from the audience coming in, and this goes again to Mr. Mutungu. What has been your biggest growth obstacle in the as a business in the African agriculture sector?
I would probably say two things equally. I was alluding to the fact earlier on that the process itself is actually quite simple, and you just have to get everything working together. And so I'd say first of all, the inertia associated with getting all of the different pieces right and getting all of those pieces synced. Whether it's strategy or finance or human capital, technology, whatever the case may be, the biggest challenge has actually not been any one of those things, but how do you get all of that working together? And I think that was the most, that was the biggest challenge as we were developing our production system, right, and getting that particular piece right. But then we got that piece working. And that was, and that was fine. I would say that, perhaps an emerging challenge for us as we continue to scale and grow as a business. I mean, we're a 6 or 7 year old business at this stage. Is now again thinking about the next phase of evolution, and especially on the leadership and on the talent side. Again, how do we transition? And I think this is a classical challenge for any business of our age. By the way, I don't think it's unique to us, but really it's just the challenge of that transition. On the people side, on the leadership side, how do we continue to grow? Convincing people to go and live in a rural part of Zambia on the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe, and getting the very best talent into that sort of location is just a challenging thing. How do you get the best talent into that location? How do you get the best leadership into that location? Very much the same thing in Buyikwe district in Uganda on Lake Victoria. Very much the same sort of challenge. But I think we've sort of worked through that, and we're getting better at it as we go along.
Perfect. Sounds good. I mean, I think we now talked a lot about the challenges. I would like to now switch to the chances and opportunities. Where do you see your company or your group of companies in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years? And what are the biggest opportunities that you see in your sector, and maybe also new opportunities which come up now with the situation of COVID-19?
Well, as you know, as I mentioned earlier, that Sudan had a big land and shortage of water, And still there is a lot of sectors really not utilized properly. And still we have the chance to grow more land, and we look forward to reach direct investment 500,000 hectares, as well as 500,000 hectares of contract farming, as well as we complete our added value chain to cover all what we produce. We would like to get crops, cash crops like the soya, as well as the corn, to come into the Sudanese economy. And we believe that we have all the tools and things that we will become the biggest agricultural company as industrial, as well as we believe that we will play a significant role in the export of Sudanese commodity, not as low as it is now. We would like to do this with the added value. From the corona, as you know, in the main cities, there is corona, but when you go to the field and the village, there is no corona. So all the business was running in farms everywhere, as it was very normal. This is maybe I wanted that when we hope with the agriculture.
I mean, when we look at the different industries, and DG is engaged in almost all industries, then we always say, well, the agri and food is quite stable in this situation because people have to eat and drink. So this will not change with or without diseases, etc. So, and it was the same experience in the 2018 crisis when everything went down, which was industries and automotive and well, related industries, but food and beverages. That is something we always need, and in the growing population, even more than that. And I'm also happy to hear that you form part of the industrialization and not only producing raw material, but also going into processing, which I think is very important also for the African continent to produce really the elaborated products and foster the industrialization process. Fantastic. So we already, we see you already as a hidden champion, and will maybe see you much more in future, and much more visible, most probably, as a global hidden champion. And Mr. Mutungu, in your case, so where do you see your business in 5 to 10 years? Maybe 10 years is a bit far away, but in the next 5 years?
Sure. Look, we consider ourselves to be a local for local business. You know, we're producing locally for local consumption. Historically, that has meant, be more of a domestic story. These days, that is becoming more of a regional story. And, over the next 5 to 10 years, what we see as a footprint across the African subcontinent, again, in delivering fish mostly to urban markets. The largest producer of meat protein today on the continent is RCL Foods in South Africa. They produce chicken as a source of protein. There's about 300,000 tons of production. We're the largest producer of tilapia on the continent, but we're a fraction of that size. And I think over the next 5 years, we would seek to have production and distribution and sales in 10 to 12 geographies, and maybe still be at about a quarter of the size or just under that of RCL Foods today. And over the next 10 years, we would be seeking to match that sort of scale under the assumption that really, again, this is the model for addressing protein availability and affordability on the continent. I think that today we are already the least cost producer of fish protein at an industrial scale. In the next 2 or 3 years, we will be on par with chicken in the next 5 years, maybe on par with Brazilian chicken. And again, the point is that we want to be able to almost define our market by how far we can drive down the cost of production in order to really grow the base and grow accessibility to protein for consumers.
Fantastic. So we wish you very much success, and it's fantastic to have targets, very, very ambitious targets, because I think without ambitious targets, you're not able to achieve your targets. So it's great to hear. A very last and very short question with the, hope to get a short answer. Mr. Mutungu, what is your expectation and your view on the Hidden Champions initiative? Do you find it important and meaningful?
Oh, absolutely. It's extremely important. I think when you talk about the need for ecosystems and platforms and just really connecting the dots, I'm sure that I and our business would have a lot to learn from Dr. Majoub's company in many different ways, whether it's on the raw material side or otherwise. And I think the opportunity for, again, knowledge transfer, sharing, learning, and also just quite frankly, knowing that the challenges that we're facing are not being faced alone, that by itself is actually pretty important as we continue along our journeys and our journey of growth.
Thank you. And Dr. Majoub, the last word for you with the same question. What do you think about this African Hidden Champions initiative, and what do you expect from it?
Well, I'm happy to be as a speaker today in the program, and this definitely will give us as NSD group a chance to be useful to the African countries, and give us also side on other activities and business and this is excellent opportunity, and it goes in line with our vision and strategy that we should integrate as African countries. We have a big chance. The market, the future will be African market, and definitely the more we know each other, other countries, other companies, with the African company, this will add positive to our activities.
Thank you very much, Dr. Majoub. Thank you very much, Mr. Mutungu. It has been a pleasure talking to you and listening to your experience. We could continue much longer and listen to your stories and your views, but unfortunately, I have to finish here. It's 4:01 our time here in Cologne. I wish you a wonderful afternoon. Thanks a lot. And well, thank you again to Yasmin and the team.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francisco.
Bye.
Okay. Hi, and I hope you are still able to hear me. Dr. Majoub, Mr. Mutungu, Franziska Haumann. If you've already dialed out, hopefully you can watch this later. But I would just like to thank all three of you for taking the time. And what I didn't mention earlier is that Dr. Majoub's business is a business that we have been watching for years and writing about for years. And it's actually my first time being able to see Dr. Majoub's face, because we've never been able to make it to Sudan. So, Dr. Majoub, I need to thank you, and I hope that when travel restrictions are less than they are now, that there will be a chance to meet in person. And Mr. Mutungu Tembwe, we've met before in other occasions, but I think what you're doing in the aquaculture space is very, very exciting. And I saw that there was also a lot of interest in the YouTube chat about this. Franziska, thank you for your partnership, and thank you for being part of this panel, but also more importantly, for being our key go-to person for building this initiative. I think that we are launching something that is going to be very exciting. And just from watching Dr. Majoub and Mr. Mutungu interact, it's so clear already that there's so much more opportunity for bringing business leaders that are doing big things in different countries together, has so much potential. So I would like to thank you all. You now have the chance to take a bit of a lunch break and also meet some Harambean companies that are currently building new ventures that are hopefully going to get to the scale of what you are building at some point. So please come onto the conference app and go to the Emerging Champs chat to check them out and watch their videos and meet the founders. And we are going to be back here in a little less than half an hour to talk about technology and the nexus of technology with agriculture, not agriculture, traditional business sectors, one of which could be agriculture, obviously. So thank you so much, Franziska, Dr. Majoub, Mr. Mutumbu. Thank you, and see you soon. And all of you enjoy the lunch break with the Harambean founders. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin.
Bye-bye.